Yeah, because I heard it like Jesus' blood is powerful enough to cover the whole world. Everybody's sins, but not everybody gets one.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to Legacy, the podcast between father and son. My name is Tony Massey, and this is my son,
Jordan Massey.
And tonight's episode is going to be really interesting. We are going to discuss how to be a good man and how to be a better husband. I really think you're going to enjoy this. I'm going to enjoy it, I know for sure, because I'll get some insight. My son recently got married this year. As a matter of fact, we both got married this year, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to learn from each other. All right. So you ready, son?
Let's do it.
All right, let's get it. All right. Again, welcome back to Legacy, the Father and Son podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Tony Massey, and of course, my son,
Jordan Massey. How y'all doing?
And tonight we're going to be talking about how to be a good man and how to be a better husband. Now, right now, if you're watching this on Facebook, then I'm going to ask that you go ahead and share the video because we're about to get into some pretty important topics, especially for the fathers out there who are watching this with their who have sons, or even just the fathers out there who have daughters, because making sure that you understand that these young men know what it means to be a good man, to me, is very important. If you have a daughter. If you're on YouTube right now, make sure you hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications so you don't miss one video of the Legacy podcast. This is definitely a labor of love. My son and I have done this almost every day of his life, just have these very deep conversations. And we just had the idea that maybe we should put it on tape. Maybe we should allow people to see and witness what we're talking about. And so that's the role you're going to play as the voyeur, just sitting, listening to my son and I wax poetic about some of the things that we feel are important as it relates to manhood. So even though we're talking, we definitely want to hear your input. So please feel free to leave comments. We have the ability to see those comments as they come in and respond to them. So we really would love for you to interact with us. All right. All right. So let's get right into this. I think the first thing we need to do is define a good man. Right.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of men out there who think that they're good men. And unfortunately, we've come to a point in socially where there is no universal definition of a good man. Some men view their manhood through certain constructs that I don't know is really helpful. So, for instance, what I mean by that is some men see their manhood or the validity of their manhood through how much money they make. or how much power they've attained, or what they do for a living, or, you know, or worse, you know, how many women that they've been with, or how many women they can be with. I totally disagree with that. I do not believe for 1 second that any of these extrinsic factors have anything to do with whether or not you are a good man. And of course, I'll definitely admit that being a good man is very subjective, because what, you know, I think is a good man may be very different than what someone else thinks is a good man, right? So I'll give my definition of a good man, and I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about that, son. I think that there's 4 characteristics of a good man. One, I think a good man has to be able to be accountable. He should be able to accept the accountability, which means accept the consequences for his actions. I think a good man has to have character. And what I mean by character is he has to be empathetic and kind. You know, there has to be complexities about him that are beyond just the, you know, what he presents and what he says and things of that nature. The third is integrity. And to me, integrity is what you do when no one is watching, right?
Yeah.
Integrity is the decisions you make when you don't think that those decisions are going to be scrutinized. To me, it goes right into how you treat people that you don't think can help you. To me, that's integrity. And then the final thing is, I really believe that a good man has to recognize that he is not the biggest thing in the universe. And so I do think good men, good, strong men, effective men surrender to a higher power. Now, I'm not the type of person who dictates what that higher power is, because I believe in free will. I believe in choice. So I'm not going to say that you have to believe what I believe, but I do believe that you have to believe in something. Otherwise, if you put yourself at the center of your universe, or the center of the universe, I think that you're going to make a lot of mistakes. So what do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely agree on a lot. You know, I'd probably be the one to tell you that, you know, that thing you have to believe in is, you know, is God, you know, the creator of all. So I'm a little more blunt about it, but God has put that in my heart, and he's shown me so much about who he is. And so definitely be on the front lines repping, you know, the God that created me. But I really think that manhood was a gift from him, and it's been so perverted, so distorted by culture, by society, by you know, whatever, you know, our own ideas of what we think manhood is. You know, just being in school growing up, you know, that last one, how many, you know, women, you know, or girlfriends you had at the time, like people you slept with or, you know, did things with, was more so like of an act of manhood, you know, or if you've grown up. But definitely knowing, you know, what manhood truly is that it's surrendering yourself under, you know, the authority of, you know, God, of knowing that you're just a creation and he's the creator. But there are principles, though, and, you know, character that, you know, he's called us to a higher purpose. And so, you know, I'm 23 though, so I'm still learning. I'm on a path of manhood. I don't think that path ever stops, but, you know, I'm definitely learning still.
Yeah, and I think that's a part of being a good man too, is recognizing that you don't know it all, that there's so many things that you know, you haven't learned, right? I think that, you know, I can't remember exactly who broke this down for me, but they explained to me the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is what you learn, right? And you know, the things that you're taught. And wisdom is what you experience. It's what you go through, right? And so if you have a lot of knowledge but no experience, then everything that you think you know is all untested, you know, information. You haven't really tried this thing out. You know it. You know, you got those book smarts, right?
Yeah.
But you haven't really tried it out.
Yeah.
And really you know, put it into practice yet. But the same thing goes with experience. If all you have is experience and no knowledge, then yeah, you can do it, and you've probably done it a million times, but you can't speak intelligently about it, or you don't know what to do when it doesn't work the way it always has, right? And so I think that one of the nuances of manhood is recognizing that I'm knowledgeable about some things, I have wisdom in some things. My goal is to bring my knowledge and wisdom together and recognize there's a lot of things I don't know about and things I'm not wise about because I haven't gone through it.
Right.
So let me ask you this. One of the things that makes our relationship so unique, in my opinion, is that, there is a gap between us. TD Jakes did this really, I thought it was a really good analogy when he said that he was shaving one morning in the mirror, and his son came into the bathroom where he was shaving, and he stood and looked at the mirror, looking at his father. And he said he had this moment of illumination where he recognized that him and his son were sharing the same space, but not the same time, right? Yeah. They were in the same space physically, but as far as time was concerned, they were in two very different times of their lives. Wow. So as someone who is 20 years younger than me, how do you see good men? How do you define or recognize good men as you enter into this manhood space, as you develop more as a man? What are the characteristics that you see as a good man, not for men my age, but for your peers? How do you recognize good men amongst your peers?
Well, it's crazy. I have a lot more, I can definitely say a lot more respect for you. And I think a lot of the times when I was younger, I had questions of why you did certain things. And, for some reason I thought, I knew a better way to do it, but I definitely have gotten a lot more respect because this life thing ain't no joke. And so I think one thing I've been learning from, peers that are around, my same kind of level, with just age and maturity, is the focus, not get distracted. I think being young, it's easy to get distracted about all the trappings of the world and what's going on in the world, but to stay focused on, a certain thing, and whether that be like a talent, you're mastering that talent, or a degree, you're going full force towards this degree, or a job or a profession or a relationship. I really am learning to respect those people around my age who have their mind focused on that one thing. They're not being tossed here and there and there, but it's like, man, there was at one point where I was like full force, like, man, I'm gonna get a degree, I'm gonna get the best grades, and then something happened and it switched to something else. But seeing those people who graduated around the time that I was really supposed to graduate and did it with the grades and whatnot, I mean, I'm not regretful of how my life's kind of been through the past years, but it is dope to see those people who stuck with it and were focused on that thing. So I would say that focus.
But I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's it.
And I'll tell you this, at 44, I agree with you. And I wish I could tell you that, when you get older, you'll see more men finish what they start. You'll see more men who have the drive and the tenacity and the determination to say, here's my goal, and I'm gonna not get distracted, and I'm gonna stay focused on the goal and see it through. No, it's just not the case. Because as distracting as life can be at 23 or 24, it can be just as distracting, if not more, at 44. Because now, in my opinion, you have a lot of future to look at, right? And I think sometimes it's difficult for being young because the future is such a difficult concept. Time is a very difficult concept when you're young, because it feels like you got it. You got time, right? I mean, if I tell you, 20 years from now, right? I think there's a huge difference between 20 years from now and 20 years ago. And what I mean by that is 20 years from now sounds like, oh my God, that's 2 decades. That's forever. I got time, right? But then when you hear 20 years ago, and now you have to trick your brain into believing that that was a long time ago when it feels like it was yesterday, right? I think looking back is a lot more difficult sometimes than looking forward. And so because of that, looking forward sometimes gives you the illusion of you have all the time in the world. And so I agree with you. I applaud those people who put focus and they're focused on their goals and are going after it, because they understand a concept that sometimes it takes a long time for people to understand. And that is that the time I spend now is an investment into my future and the time that I'm going to have and how I'm going to spend that time later on. Right. So it's literally like the 23-year-old Jordan right now is making decisions for the lifestyle and the quality of life for the 44-year-old Jordan.
Right. Yeah.
And so you got to decide how you want 44-year-old Jordan to feel about you. Is he going to say, hey, man, you did that, bro. Good job. I appreciate you, man. You laid it out for me. I really appreciate you. Yeah. Or you're going to look back and go, bro, what did you do? What the hell have you been doing for the last 20 years? Right? And so I think as men, that's one of the things we have to understand is that, we're literally investing today. We're investing into our future. And I think the onus on us is even more so because at some point, not only is it going to be our future, but it's also going to be the future of our family. And if we're truly going to lead our family, then we have to make decisions while we're single and while we're young that are going to have a positive impact on our families in the future.
Right. Yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to be held accountable for that. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And, I think this is such an important conversation because I'll tell you, and this is not me patting myself on the back because I know I wasn't the best father. I know I made mistakes and I came short of even my own expectations. But I do, and I don't know if you see this in your circles, your social circles, but I do see the absence of strong, positive, mature male role models in the lives of some men having a negative impact on them as they try to navigate life and try to figure out what they're supposed to do, figure out how they're supposed to interact with other people, whether it be people of other, genders, ethnicities, whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like one of the roles of a father, especially for his son, is to kind of point him in the right direction as it relates to the path to manhood.
Yeah.
And that's a difficult task because we talked about this last week. There are places you're going to go as a man that I didn't even know existed, right? There are going to be things you're going to do as a man that would never, those opportunities were never provided to me. My father wasn't able to, my uncles and my father, they weren't able to put together a TV show or an internet show and broadcast it on the internet. I mean, that's not something they could have helped me with because that's not something that was even thought of in their time, right? Or at least when they were my age. But do you see see how that absence has an impact on the young men that you know?
Yeah. And it's, I'm like I said, I'm very blessed and very thankful because, a lot of it's, the map has been kind of marked out, a lot of the workarounds or kind of cycles or the pitfalls that some of my, close friends had to go through. I thankfully don't have to, because, you would tell me, I know what's down this road. I've already done this for you, and so anytime that I did, it was just because I was stubborn and I needed to, but it wasn't out of, I don't know what's behind this door, let me find out. It was, it was pride and stubbornness.
Yeah.
And so I definitely, see it as kind of darkness, as far as like, I feel like you really paved the way and kind of lit up the path. So it didn't seem so unbearable. But like you said, 20 years ahead, I'm like, okay, well, at least, and we were talking about this last episode, like on Carl says, at the least you can be as a sheet metal worker, and at the least I could be as a, oil and gas, safety consultant. Like, that's the least, I'll be living in a hotel Zaza and whatnot.
Right.
But you paved the way. So it really wasn't like I was walking out on a limb.
Right.
Or it's not like that.
And I think it's important that, I don't ever want to make you feel less than or chastise you for not taking my advice, because again, I think part of being a man is taking those roads, and figuring it out for yourself. Sometimes, sometimes you can learn from the lessons of other people, but sometimes you have to learn, from a lesson that you go through yourself. Sometimes you can't read about or hear about something. Sometimes you actually have to actually go through it and experience it for yourself for it to actually sink in. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I do think that at some point, all of us have to make the decision that, look, I don't necessarily need to get burned every time to determine whether or not fire is hot. At some point, I have to start surrounding myself with people I trust, that if they tell me this, then I can just go ahead and take their word for it, right?
Yeah.
But again, at this point in my life, I still struggle with that. There's still things that I follow, and then there's other things where I'm like, nah, I don't think that's going to happen to me. And then it does. You know what I mean? So,
I could say, like, for me, getting burned, it was almost like a realization, like, oh, he was just trying to prevent me from that,
right?
Because before it was like, he's keeping something from me, I mean, like the first sin, God don't want you to be like him. That's why he holding that tree from you,
Right.
And so it was almost like that pride was like, well, I want to see that, you don't know what you're talking about,
And that's one of the struggles of being a father, is that, I want to protect you and I want to prevent you from going down the path that I went down. But then there's also, I was talking to some friends about this the other night, raising your child in a safe and kind of a sterile environment. It feels good to know that they're not in any danger, but then the unintended consequence of that is they lack the street savvy and the the situational awareness, because they never really felt what it feels like to be in harm's way unless they put themselves there, right?
Ooh.
So that's the other part that makes it a little difficult, because it's like, man, I just really didn't want you to have to experience that. But then accepting that sometimes that's just what you got to do, as a man, you just kind of have to go through it.
Yeah.
And so let's transition.
Okay.
So we talked about manhood and being a good man, what makes a good man. And again, I think that that's a very subjective concept, because, I think that there are great men out there who may not necessarily have the outer trappings or the extrinsic, things that we think about when we think about a good man, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even like, this idea that a man has to make six figures and all that other stuff. I mean, to me, it's all about passion, right? We talked about passion and purpose last time. It's all about passion. You know what I mean? Are you living in your purpose, and are you passionate about what you do? then the money's going to come at the time that it's supposed to, right? So let's transition to being a better husband. And the reason that I put the title the way I did is because I truly believe that being a better husband is a constant thing. It's a constant pursuit. Mm-hmm. I don't think that any man, I don't care how great you are, should ever get to a point where he just says, I'm as good of a husband as I'm going to be. I think every single day, the goal is to be a better husband than I was yesterday, right?
Right.
You being newly married, from your perspective, what makes a better husband? What are some of the things that you associate being a better husband with?
Ooh, man. Well, okay. I will say this. This is something I've noticed in my short 3 months of marriage. Something I picked up on. It's those decisions, those points where you hit like, I could either, just go to bed right now and, because I'm tired, or, I can go do that thing, that I know my wife wants me to do.
Right.
Although I could do it in the morning, I could, let me just do it right now. And so I've been noticing like a lot of the molding and growing comes from those like on the spot decision making moments, like on the way home. I can pick up something, some flowers or something to surprise my wife. I just go home. She's not expecting it anyway, right. But it's just like I feel that conviction, like that's what she wants, and I like seeing her, Jordan and whatnot. I love that,
And I also think that understanding that you chose her and she chose you, and that you're in this together has a lot to do with it too. And I think one of the most difficult parts about being a good husband or better husband is sometimes you don't get what you want. Sometimes you do what you have to do, what you're required to do. And unfortunately, there's a lot of men out there who don't understand the nature of marriage, right? They think that marriage is a something that you get something from. You know what I mean? That you if I pay the bills and I go to work and blah blah blah, then I get something.
Yeah.
And the reality is you don't always get something, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not quid pro quo. Sometimes it's just knowing that you have that partner. You have that person in your life that has your back and you have hers. It comes down to that becomes the most important thing, right? So I agree with you. There are times where I put my wife's needs first. And that doesn't mean that my needs aren't important. It means that I've made the decision to have this woman in my life in a way that I'm committed to her, and I'm committed to creating an environment that allows her to seek her own happiness, but I'm going to help her out along the way. And I think that's what makes a good. Now, you do have to provide. You know what I mean? You do have to take the. I think that being a leader, you have to be financially a leader too. You have to be emotionally a leader, financially a leader, physically a leader. But you also have to understand when to. Even the leader needs to know when to be upfront and when to lead from the back, right? And so I think that one of the nuances of being a good husband is understanding when it's appropriate to, when it's appropriate to put my wife first. Excuse me.
You still there?
Yeah, I lost my camera, so I had to switch over. Yeah. So, and that's the thing that frustrates me about conversations, especially with men who aren't yet married. And we talk about what it means to be a good husband or a good wife. They get so caught up on these traditional roles, right? that a woman is supposed to cook and she's supposed to clean and she's supposed to do this and she's supposed to do that. And I don't understand where collaboration comes into play, because I don't think any woman gets married so that she can become some man's maid, right? I think that, you know, I get the concept of gender roles, and I do believe that, you know, there are some roles that should be followed, but I also believe that you should have a collaborative mindset when you enter into a relationship or a marriage. And if you're so focused on her doing these things or these tasks, but you're not providing emotional support or even receiving an emotional support from her, then, you know, did you need a wife or a maid? You know what I'm saying? Like, what was the end result here? What was the goal here, right? And so I think it has to be balanced in order for it to work, especially if you're married to someone who has, you know, purpose, who has passions. And I think those passions and purpose should be, you know, as a husband, you should help facilitate opportunities for her to reach, you know, to explore those passions and those purpose. Otherwise, again, you know, what was the point of this? What do you think?
So I understand. I get that. You know, sometimes leading from the back, you know, because I don't think for me personally, I don't think the leadership, you know, switches from person to person. I think the man is called to lead his wife. You know, there's just a kind of a natural order, you know, with a family and a husband and wife. But that's interesting, leading from the back, because, you know, some things it wouldn't make sense if I led, like, right, you know, finance, like some things I'm not strong in that my wife is. You know, we'd be wasting time if I was doing, you know, something that she can do, you know, and be more effective at. And so, I mean, is that what you're talking about when you talk about?
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. I mean, you know, the CEO of a company never surrenders his title, right? But he has trusted people around him, and he yields to their expertise, right? He's not going to say, well, you know, I know you're the chief financial officer, but we're doing it my way. No, I trust that your expertise is going to be more than mine. And so we'll do it the way, you know, you think is best, especially if, you know, that if you feel very passionately about that. Right. But if you're just constant, I think there's a difference between a leader and a tyrant. Right. I think true leadership, it means, you know, surrounding yourself with people who you trust and that are smarter than you, that are more capable than you. That's what leadership is all about, in my opinion. But tyrants, they don't listen to anyone. They use their title as a weapon. You know, I'm the head of the house. I'm the man here. And I've always said, if you have to tell people who you are, then you're not telling them. You're telling you. Right. I don't have to tell anybody that I'm the man of this house. Everybody in this house knows that I'm the man of this house. Right. And everybody outside this house. Right. So if I'm constantly having to remind people who I am, then that means I'm not effective in that role, in my opinion. Right. That's good. Yeah. So when I say lead from the back, that's exactly what I mean. You know, my wife has an MBA. You think I'm going to fight with her over, you know, how the finances work? No, she literally has a master's degree in money. And I'm going to tell, well, no, I think we should spend $20. No, I'm going to yield to her expertise. But that doesn't mean that I surrender my role as the leader of the house. It also doesn't mean that I surrender the ultimate accountability for our financial and fiscal health for this house. I'm trusting her to, you know, we sit down and discuss what are our goals? What is it that we want to accomplish? What are the things that we want to do? And then, you know, we strategize how is the best way to do that. And that's when I go to her and say, okay, what do you think? Because you are better at this than me. And then together we execute. Right. Because if you create a plan with your spouse, right? We want to get out of debt in 3 years, but you're taking $20 out here, $20 out there. You're spending money here, you're spending money there because you're the man, because it's my money, because I'm in charge. Then you've deviated from the goal.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Same thing with any other decision that you make in the house. Hey, we're going to go to church every Sunday, but then football season comes around and you're like, well, this game is coming on, or something. You have to have conviction. You have to be able to stand on your word, and that goes back to that, that integrity, that character, right? Because I don't think any woman wants to follow a man who's incapable of leading himself. And I think that ultimately that's the most important thing. I don't tell me about how you govern your house if you can't govern yourself. If you can't keep yourself in check, then I don't care about how you keep your woman in check.
Right.
You lack any type of self-discipline, but yet you want everybody to yield, to bow down to you because you're the man, because this, that, and the third. Right. And I think for whatever reason, a lot of men get into these relationships and they lose sight of what's really important. Like arguments. You're gonna disagree. You're gonna disagree on a lot of things. You're two very different people. You come from two very different backgrounds, and now you're trying to share this life together. And there are going to be times where you say go left and she says go right, right? And the easy thought is, well, in the case of a disagreement, because I'm the leader, then we'll just defer to me. But what if she's right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What if she's absolutely right? We should go that direction. So to me, that's when, as a man, instead of arguing to be right, that's when you have a conversation and you figure out, well, why are you so adamant about us going this direction? Tell me what your thought process is. Let's talk this through. Give me some a better understanding of why you're insisting on going the opposite direction to me.
Yeah.
And then you may learn that because I've gone down that road before, or because I have information that you're not privy to, or because whatever, right?
Yeah.
So to me, that's true leadership, not just yelling and arguing and fighting just so you can be right. And I think that's the difference. You know what I mean when it comes to this whole concept of leadership in a home. Because here's the thing: I've talked to a lot of women who say that I don't want to be in charge. Especially women who are accomplished and high-powered women at work. The last thing they've been telling people what to do all day. The last thing they want to do is come home and run their man. They want to be able to surrender, control and responsibility and accountability to someone who's capable and competent and who's empathetic and who's understanding. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that that's the desire. But I think there's a lot of guys out there who want the title, and they want the all of the stuff that go, the benefits that go with it. But what they don't want is the accountability.
Yeah.
If you're going to be the man of your house, that means you don't blame anybody. When we go, and to me, we go back to the garden, right? When that rule was violated, God went to one person. He didn't say, Adam,
Eve, where you at?
Eve, we're out there. No, Adam, where you at?
Right.
And here's the part that's important. God never told Eve anything. He told Adam. Matter of fact, Eve didn't exist when he told Adam, right? Yeah. So again, we're talking about accountability. But Adam did what so many men do in this situation. Instead of saying, you know what, God, that's on me. You're absolutely right. I messed up. And I repent and I ask your forgiveness. Yeah. What did he do?
He shifted the blame.
Yeah. It was that woman. Yeah, you sent me. I ain't ask you for that.
Yeah.
And we see this happen with these guys and I see it in these guys who have this hatred and this vitriol towards their baby mama. Okay, well, at some point, you know, at some point you liked her. You know what I mean? And so I think that in those moments, we have to take accountability. If you're going to be in charge, the buck needs to stop here. That's when and to me, that's going to stop a lot of these petty arguments too. You know, it's not about letting her win, and it's not about being a simp or being a punk or whatever the case may be. It's understanding that, look, we can either fight all night or we can make up and go about the business of being married. But I'm not going to go to war with you so that I can be right.
Yeah. And
I told you this before you got married. Being right is a very cold place, man. It's lonely. I'd rather be wrong and warm.
Right.
In my bed, in my own bed, than right and laying on the couch.
Right. Yeah, at least I'm right.
Right, exactly. So, you know, you guys only been married for 3 months, and you don't have to tell your business by no means, but have you been presented with conflict as a married couple?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
how have you navigated that?
By, you know, sometimes communication right away, other times relax, then communication later. And then usually, you know, it comes out, you know, one of us, we knew we were wrong. And like, hey, I'm sorry. You know, I shouldn't act it out like that. And other times there was a real issue where, you know, one of us was wrong. We just didn't know. And so there was like a misunderstanding. So we had to like talk about it. And then like, hey, we'll see. I didn't understand that you meant that when you said it. And so we kind of just have to discern, you know, is this something where one of us needs to just repent, you know, or is there a misunderstanding, you know? Because a lot of times I'm not gonna lie, you know, I know I'm wrong. I'm just like, you know, unashamed about it. I'm like, nah, I ain't gonna say nothing. Yeah. She need to say something, you know. And you know, and like you said, it's a cold place, you know.
Cold place, man, I'm telling you, yeah. Cause you know, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You know, she going on about her day like nothing because she didn't do nothing. Yeah. You know, I know I'm wrong, and I'm sitting here with this like, so yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And you know, and I think as men, it's very important for us to understand that. I think there's two things that you pointed out that I think are really important. One is sometimes in the moment is not the time to have the conversation, right? Yeah. Sometimes when you're passionate and you're full of, you know, whatever emotion is attached to the event, that's not the time to have this conversation because I can't be objective, right? I'm in my feelings, as they say. And so as long as I'm in my feelings, then that's where all of my argument is going to come from. It's not going to come from my logic. It's going to come from, you know, my feelings. And it's hard to argue when you're in your feelings because all your argument is wrapped in passion. And and I know I've done this. I don't know if you ever have, but I've been in arguments and realized halfway through the argument, damn, I was wrong.
No, that's never happened.
You know what? She's right. But yet I'm in my feelings and I'm so passionate that I can't, you know, I can't in that moment, I can't say, you know what, baby, you're right. I didn't even know that, you know. And so I think that taking that time, giving each other the time to process, to reflect, to calm down, to get to a point where, okay, now I'm ready to talk.
Yeah.
I think if you do that, that provides you the opportunity to speak from here and not from a place of hurt or a place of disappointment or a misunderstanding. Sometimes it even gives you time to process and realize that I'm really not even offended. You know, now that I've had a moment to think about it, it doesn't even really bother me as much as it did when it happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing you said that I think is important is, you know, recognizing and being able to be man enough to say, I'm sorry and admit that you're wrong. I don't understand why any man would have a difficult time telling his wife the woman he has chosen to spend the rest of his life with, the woman he has stood before God and man and said, I'm committed to you. I can't imagine why he wouldn't be able to tell that woman, I'm sorry. I think that if there's any woman on the planet, I think that woman should get an apology before anybody, right?
Yeah.
And that apology doesn't necessarily have to be, I'm sorry for what I did. It could be, I'm sorry for the way I made you feel.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for the environment that I created. I'm sorry for what, whatever. But to me, that's where compassion comes into play and empathy comes into play.
Yeah.
But if you allow yourself to get so angry, so full of rage that you can't tell your wife you're sorry, man, that's a tough place to be right there.
Wow.
And to be able to say I was wrong.
Yeah.
I think, and I know there are women watching, I would love your feedback on this. I think there's nothing more reassuring to a woman than to know that she is married to a man who has the courage to admit when he's wrong. Because to me, that builds trust, right? If you can tell me when you're wrong, then I can celebrate you when you're right. But if you're going to sit here and try to convince me, a full adult, capable in all my mind, that you're never wrong, then I've made a mistake, because that would make you perfect. And I know for a fact that there are no perfect people. And being imperfect myself, the last thing I want to do is spend time with a perfect person.
Right.
I'm not interested in that.
No, I'm good.
I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
So Lysandra says, yeah, it shows that he trusts you with his vulnerability. That is absolutely right. I agree with you 100%. It shows he trusts you with his vulnerability. And it's so important as men for us to find safe spaces to be vulnerable. And I can't think of a safer space than within the confines of your marriage.
Yeah.
If you haven't reached the point in your marriage, and I'm not talking about dating, I do not advocate men be vulnerable with women that they're dating, because your vulnerability can easily be weaponized by somebody that has nefarious objectives or whatever.
Right.
But when you get married, and that's why this step is such an important step, you got to strip down, man. You got to get down to the beyond naked. And when you show a woman, especially your wife, I don't even say a woman, when you show your wife that you lack the trust and the courage to be vulnerable in front of her, then what are you saying?
Yeah.
I mean, we're supposed to love our wives. How?
Like Christ loved the church.
And I can't think of a more vulnerable relationship.
Cool. Wow.
You know what I'm saying? And so if that's what our charge is to do, then how do we do that with a wall? How do we do that pretending that we have everything together? How do we do that never admitting when we're wrong? How do we do that never apologizing, never showing that, you know what, sometimes I get afraid?
Yeah.
Doesn't make you weak.
Yeah.
It makes you human.
Say that.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, if you're constantly afraid, then that means you have issues with you.
Yeah.
And just like I don't want to be with a perfect person, I don't want to be with someone who's constantly second guessing themselves. Because to me, that means that person lacks faith and that person doesn't believe anything beyond themselves.
Wow.
So you got to be somewhere in the middle, right? In order for that to work.
Yeah. And I think as far as transparency goes, if that's what you want, then you got to give that,
Say that again for the people in the back, man. You're so right.
If you want transparency from your wife or your spouse, like, you got to give it. You got to show them, hey, I'm gonna show you everything, because I want to see, I want to hear, those thoughts, and I want to hear those intimate, those things that you're afraid of. But that takes you being vulnerable. And that has definitely motivated me to share with my wife those vulnerable moments. And what's encouraging and what I'm so grateful for is in the scariest point when you're being vulnerable, you know, pretty much naked in front of this person, you know, metaphorically. And then they say, you know, like, I want, you know, I want to know when you're sad. I want to be there, you know, when you feel like there's no way out, you know. It's like, at first I had a question. I'm like, why do you want to, you know, why would you want to? Because I barely want to be in this position that I'm in right now.
Right.
You know, why would you want to join and sit with me in it?
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, he who finds a wife finds a good thing, you know. And like, if that's not Christ, you know, if that's not the love of God, how he, you know, indwells into humanity with all the sinfulness and everything, you know, disgustingness around it, and yet still chooses, you know, to be in the midst of his creation, as imperfect as it is. You know, that's love, you know.
Man, and I wish more men understood that. You know, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to make six figures. You don't have to have a six pack. You don't have to be all of these things, but you do have to be honest.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you do have to be motivated to go somewhere. Right. Again, going back to the garden, God looked at Adam and said, he needs help.
Yeah. Right.
Right. It's not good for man to be alone. He needs help. Well, you don't need help if you're not doing anything.
Right.
Right. I don't need help laying around and just watching TV. I don't need anybody to assist me in doing that.
Right.
But when it comes to my purpose, when it comes to, you know, actually fulfilling that which God has put me on this earth to be, then there's nothing more valuable than a helpmeet. But like you said, in order to get to that place, you've got to give what you expect in return.
Yeah.
So you can't be this demanding person, you know, show me everything, but you don't show anything.
Woo.
Right.
Right.
Because you haven't built trust.
Right.
You haven't built, you know, it's not reciprocal. Right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stand naked metaphorically in front of you while you're fully clothed with a trench coat on. Because my fear is judgment.
Right.
You know, I'm afraid that in my nakedness and your clothes, you know, you're going to judge me. Yeah. And because it's easy to judge someone from a space where you're not doing what they're doing. It's like, you know, being a critic. I've always said a critic is the easiest job in the world, because all you have, you literally get paid to critique people who do something that you can't replicate.
Ooh.
And that's why the really tough critics, the ones whose input is valuable, are the ones who are actually have done it. You know, like a food critic, I trust the scrutiny of Gordon Ramsay more so than I trust some writer out of New York who can't, you know, boil noodles. Right. Right. You know what I mean? Right. And so as husband and wives, you know, we have to be able to get to that point. But I really believe, and I'll say this, you know, and I really believe it. I think it's on the man to set the tone. You know, I think it's on the man to create the environment. I really think it's on the responsibility of the man to establish the framework for that vulnerability. Whew. And now that doesn't mean he goes first. That means that he creates an environment through his treatment, through his words, through the way he loves, that allows both of you to slowly peel off those layers, because he's cognizant that every time a layer comes off, both of you are now exposed.
Right.
But that means trust. That means integrity. That means character. You got to do what you said you were going to do. And I think that most women would agree with that. I'm not asking you to do a lot. I'm just asking you to do what you said you were going to do. I'm not asking you to be a lot. I'm not asking you to be a big man, a great man. Just be the man you said that you were when we met. Right. Be consistent.
Yeah.
Remain who you told me that you were. Right. Yeah. And keep going in the direction that you told me you were going. When I meet you, don't tell me, you know, I'm gonna be, you know, I'm gonna be the president of the United States one day, baby. Okay, I believe you. Let's do it. Right. And you can't, and now you're not even the assistant manager at McDonald's. What happened?
Right.
What happened?
Know, but but if you were vulnerable, she could see that, and she's like, nah.
Yes,
president is not meant. It's not for you, and y'all would have leave so much stress and pain and whatnot.
Yeah, like,
She
baby,
could see that,
I love you,
but you ain't being honest with yourself,
right?
And so, but
and I think that you bring up a great point, because I think that checks and balances is such a valuable tool.
Yeah,
because there have been times where I told my wife something and she's like, I don't know.
You're right.
I don't know if that's in your lane.
Right.
It hurts my pride and it hurts my ego. But at the end of the day, I know she's right.
Right.
I come home and tell my wife, I'm thinking about going out and joining the NBA. I don't know, babe. I don't know if that's what you really want to do.
Right.
I mean, I don't know that that's going to be something that's going to happen for you. What you mean? I can do anything I want. Yeah, you can. Not that. Right. Lysandra says, let's see, this is a good woman. Let's rethink that. If you translate to, you ain't going into no damn NBA. What's wrong with you? You 5'9" and way overweight. But that's the kind of compassion and nurturing that a woman brings to the table. But you got to create, we always talk about what are you bringing to the table. How about this? How about we focus, instead of what we're bringing to the table, let's focus on building the table.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That way, whatever we bring, we have a place to set it down. Because if I come in with my stuff and you come in with your stuff, but we never took time to create a foundation for all this stuff to exist.
Yeah.
And what's the point? Now we're going to start counting stuff. Now we're comparing, you put one in, I put one in. And to me, this whole idea about 50-50, I believe that marriage, anyone who's seeking equality in a marriage does not understand the nature of marriage. Because you won't get equality, but you will get equity if you're in a good marriage.
Yeah.
You'll get what you need when you need it. And I think that's important. I don't think anyone should take from the marriage more than they need at the time that they need it. And that's why I don't think that you need to turn your wife into your emotional punching bag. You don't need to put all that stuff on her every single day. If you come home every day and you had a bad day, you need to change your life. Every day can be a bad day. You need to make some changes, man. You need to reevaluate some of your decisions.
Yeah.
But every time you come home, you angry. My God, get a new job.
and I have to definitely speak on this. Is it really matters? I told my friend this a few weeks ago. My relationship with God is, you benefit, from that. Anything good that I've done for you or anything, I've looked past that, and even with my wife, like, she gets the overflow. Like what my grandmother always says, you get the overflow of my relationship with God.
Right.
Because I have experienced the love of God towards me. Right. I can now show that to you. I couldn't do that before, and it'd only be a superficial, and really, if we're being honest, a selfish based love.
Yes.
Before, if I didn't understand the love that God had towards me, because he did it selfishly or selflessly, and so now I have a template. And so when scripture says that Christ loved to husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church, that's an example. Right. I'm called to love my wife in giving myself and fully giving myself, because he didn't leave anything else. I mean, he gave his whole self.
All of you.
Right. And so, and I think that's important for any marriage. I mean, because marriage was the first institution created by God. I mean, it's a holy, my wedding day was like, it was crazy. I mean, I was crying on the way. I was like, I felt so privileged, to like taste this, there was one point, I really thought I was gonna be single. I was gonna be a single Christian out there. My pastor was like, "All right, calm down, brother." 'Cause I was just struggling. I was like, maybe the Lord's called me to singleness, and he's like, "Nah, just."
I think
But
every man goes through that. Every man has that moment. Like, I'm just, maybe I wasn't built for marriage, but no, you just haven't met the right one. That's all it is.
yeah. And so I mean, it was amazing. I felt so privileged. I felt so, and it's an illustration of Christ and the church. I mean, it's the greatest love, like to fully give yourself, to another person, whether they deserve it, to love that person, whether they deserve it or not.
That's the key. I don't love my wife to the extent that she loves me. I love my wife to the extent that I love her. And like you said, I use my relationship as I use my relationship with God as a template.
Yeah.
To the degree that I expect grace, I give it. To the degree that I expect love, I give it. To the degree that I expect forgiveness, I give it. Right.
Yeah.
And the expectation is from God, who is all things in my life.
Right.
And so the way I show love from my wife is by showing her the God in me.
Right.
No, not me, the God, but the God that lives in me. I am a reflection of the God that that I serve. But how can I claim to be a Christian? How can I claim to be a godly man when I don't show grace? I can't forgive. I speak with her unkindly. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not giving the kind of love that I'm receiving from God.
Yeah.
I should be a reflection. She should see God in me.
Right.
But if she can't see God in me, and that to me, that's intimacy. Into me, I see intimacy, right? She needs to be able to see past the surface, and that's why a nice suit and cologne and jewelry and all that stuff, that's great.
It's cool.
But then what?
Yeah.
Because like you said, at some point I'm gonna have to stand naked in front of this woman, and I won't have the aid of my nice suit and my jewelry and all this other stuff.
Right.
All I have is me.
Ooh.
But if there's God in me, then that's more than enough.
Yeah.
Right? There's more than enough. My cup runneth over.
Yeah.
And that's why, again, I go back to being a good man. You got to believe that there is something bigger than you. If you are the biggest thing in your universe, you coming up short, brother.
Right.
You coming up short, man. All right, we hit an hour. This was a good one, man. I really enjoyed this topic. I really did. I know it's one that we're going to talk about a lot.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you how much I appreciate you trusting me, and being able to have these kind of conversations to me is so important, because one thing that men, I think that we struggle with, is creating relationships with other positive men. And so when we have we run into a problem, or we run into a situation we don't know what to do, we talk to men who don't necessarily have our best interest at heart. And they say things to us that are contrary to what we actually want. Like, I love my wife. I want to make my marriage work. But yet I come to my friend and say, man, I don't know what to do. Man, you ain't got to take all that, man. Leave her. No, that's not what I want.
Right.
I just want, I don't want to leave her. I just, I just want her to stop spending money. Whatever. You know what I mean? And so I think that these type of conversations are so important, because at the end of the day, the easiest way to create change, in my opinion, is to start with yourself. Right. But you got to have a safe space for that. If you don't, then you end up putting more barriers in your life than are necessary. So,
and quickly, can I say this one thing?
Yeah, please.
I remember listening to I listen to Tony Evans a lot, and he kind of talked about what you were saying, like, taking certain things from our wives is counterculture, to what a man is supposed to how he's supposed to be like looked at, you know, like, no, you don't talk back to me, you don't do this, you know, you don't, I receive the best from you at all times.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know, sometimes, you know, I mean, think about how many times we have denied or sinned, you know, against Christ, and he still chose to love our behinds, like, you know, and he's like, you're gonna have to take on some lashings, you know, if you were to say, from your wife, you know, and your friends are gonna be like, oh man, you ain't got to deal with that. There's many fish in the pond.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, I love my wife because I know Christ loved me in the same way, you know. And I think, like, yeah, when I talk to people about, you know, marriage, or I seek counseling, it's never from, you know, one of my friends who's still single, or, you know, thinks I should, you know, be single or whatnot. It's from people who I know understand that whoever finds a wife finds a good thing and obtain favor from the Lord, you know. So yeah,
and I love that, because, you know, if you imagine if every time we had doubt, every time we got angry, every time we looked up at the heavens and said, why me? Imagine if God was like, you know what, I ain't got to put up with this crap.
Right.
I can make another one look just like you that ain't gonna question me all the time and raise their voice at me. You know, imagine if God broke up with us just because, you know, we got out of pocket, or, you know, we raised our voice, and we questioned even his existence. He still is there for us, right? And so it only makes sense for us to be able to extend that same grace to our wives. And that's the key. We're not talking about just, you know, Susie down the street. I'm talking about the person that I stood there in a suit and told the world and God that I promise to do these things.
Yeah.
So she deserves a little grace. She deserves to raise her voice a few times. She deserves to, you know, question me and all this other stuff, because she's human.
All right.
And I didn't want to marry a robot. I'm good.
Yeah.
All right, kiddo, let's get out of here. If you are on Facebook, I hope you shared this live. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so that you don't miss one single episode. This has been the Legacy Podcast with me, Tony Massey. You can find me at Tony Massey Cooks on all social media platforms. What about you, son? Tell them how they can find you.
You can find me on my YouTube, Jordan Massey, and that's about it.
All right. Be good to one another. Happy New Year. This is the first broadcast of the new year. So let's make 2021 epic. And you know, just be kind to one another, because I think that's one of the most important things that we can do.
Yeah.
All right, kiddo. I will talk to you later, but I'll see you next week.
All right, Dad.
All right.